Welcome to our BWB Worldwide Call. My name is Christopher Breedlove. I am the Director of Civic Activation for Burning Man, and I've been working with BWB for a very long time. I'm just going to do a very quick intro and kind of say, why do we do these BWB Worldwide Calls? And we have been trying for a very long time to figure out how to bring a decentralized community together to talk about the topics that mean something to us as a community. And so we've been doing this way longer than Zoom existed. I was going back into the archives, and we did a call that was a very similar theme back in 2012 with Doxy and Halcyon, who are going to be presenting later, about the same subject. This is like when we were all having to call in and mute by pressing *7. And so this has been a long time coming. And I think what's really exciting about today's call for me is that the circle is getting wider. We have more people who are working on this. We have more people in the community, because the only way we're going to tackle big issues that are happening in the world is that all of us find our little thing that we want to contribute to the world, because that's what creates a worldwide movement. And, I really want to just also credit Jamie, because Jamie has really put together this call today about working with our unhoused neighbors. And if we really think about what radical inclusion is, I think we're going to see some really amazing examples of this today.
Welcome. My name is Jamie Braun, and I am the program manager for Burners Without Borders. And I want to say thank you all so much for just joining us this evening. Over the past few years, I've met all the amazing humans on the call they'll be presenting tonight. And every time I heard about their work, I felt extremely inspired. And I just realized all these projects really belong in one conversation together. So bringing everyone in the same virtual space tonight feels very exciting. And before we begin, I do want to acknowledge something about language. During this call, you may hear the terms unhoused and homeless used interchangeably. We recognize that language around housing is evolving, and our intention is to speak with care and respect for the dignity of people experiencing housing instability. The words themselves are imperfect, but our focus tonight is really on the relationships, creativity, and community-rooted responses that have emerged. What you'll hear tonight is a range of approaches, and what connects all of these projects is the shared belief that community-led action matters. So with that, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Haley. Some of you may know her on Playa as Interrupt. Haley is a Reno-based burner and the founder of the Burner Gear Give Back, a project that we learned about through our online BWB project proposal form in 2023. And it has a simple but powerful idea: helping lightly used camping gear from burners find a second life in the hands of unhoused people in and around Reno. The project returned again in 2024 and has continued to evolve. And for 2026, Haley is focused on reinvigorating the Burner Gear Give Back by streamlining the distribution process, deepening community involvement, and bringing more volunteers into the effort. That could be you. So Haley, I'm really excited for folks to hear about the work you've been doing, and I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Jamie, for the introduction. I appreciate that. Well, like Jamie said, my name is Haley, or Interrupt, depending on if you meet me in the default or on Playa. And yeah, in 2023, I created the Burner Gear Give Back project, aiming to take lightly used camping gear from burners and redistribute it to folks experiencing houselessness in Reno Sparks. Okay, cool. So a little bit of backstory. In 2023, I was working in homeless and housing services. So I was doing outreach. I was going directly into homeless encampments and giving resources to folks. That's what these pictures are, just some pictures from when I was out and about. And actually, so the place on the left is where I met the gentleman who I had a really great conversation with. And he told me that after Burning Man, he and his campmates would go and dumpster dive to pick out all the gear that burners would throw away after Burning Man. However, sometimes this was considered trespassing or stealing, so it would create some tense interactions with law enforcement. And this inspired me because I feel like it was kind of a no-brainer to figure out a way to collect that gear and then redistribute it to unhoused folks. so that, we could limit those interactions and also give the gear, new life for people who could really use it. I emailed Burners Without Borders, and they were super great at helping me get started and getting organized. And I also fundraised this project on GoFundMe. I did a poetry fundraiser to help cover costs associated with the project. And yeah, 2023. First collection. I worked with the Burner Express team to land me a spot at the Reno Tahoe Airport. So, kind of what this looked like um, as burners were coming off of the Burner Express buses, I was downwind from them, and I would just be like, "Hey, you want to give me some of your gear?" And I'm giving it to homeless people. And the response was really, really great. As you can see from these photos, we got a lot of stuff. Um, we got over 20 tents. We got over 30 sleeping bags. We got over 30 pairs of boots. You may remember that 2023 was the Mud Man. So people were coming off of the bus just being like, "Will you take my boots?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And so they were happy to unload those. But we cleaned them up and we were able to get them to some folks who could really use them. And we also got a lot of hygiene items, blankets, pillows, quality of life stuff, chapstick. And over the course of the next few months, we distributed the gear through direct outreach and through utilizing my local mutual aid groups that exist here in Reno. So going into encampments, asking if people could use things, giving it to them there, and then also dropping off. It's every Tuesday in Reno. It's called Family Soup Mutual Aid, and dropping off the gear there. In 2024, we came back, and we were also the recipient of a Civic Ignition grant, which was awesome. Helped us cover the costs associated with running the donation drive, mainly storage. That is definitely the biggest cost associated with Burner Gear Give Back. And it was an overwhelming success again. We beat the record for tents. I think like in 2023, we got somewhere in the 20s, and then in 2024 we got over 30 tents. So we got a lot more than we did the previous year. And we literally filled the 10 by 10 storage unit to the door. So it was hard to open and hard to shut. So that was really cool. Everyone was really excited. I had one person come back and say that they remembered the 2023 donation drive and they were excited to give again. So that was really cool. And same setup, we were at the Burner Express terminal at the Reno airport and collected from burners going home. Distribution looked similar, though I did less direct outreach in 2024, and it was mainly through the mutual aid groups in Reno. So looking to 2026, we took a pause in 2025. 2025 was crazy, but 2026 is so far being less crazy. So it would be nice to do it again. My main bottleneck, I would say, is volunteers. So the collection happens burn weekend, right? So the weekend the man burns, and burners like to go to Burning Man. So it's hard to get folks to volunteer in Reno to collect the gear during burn weekend. But I've been thinking that perhaps I'll reach out to the university here in Reno and see if there's any college students who would be down to get some volunteer hours under their belt. But yeah, I would really like to get it going again, and also a little bit more streamlined distribution solution. So I've been collecting the gear, storing it, and then as time goes on, like picking up a load, taking it to the mutual aid or taking it to camps, things like that. And it's becoming a little bit unsustainable. So I'm curious to see if there are volunteers in my area who want to just come pick up gear and distribute it themselves or whatever that may look like. So we're looking to 2026, hopefully the restart of Burner Gear Give Back. And yeah, big picture, I would love this to become an every year event. I feel like it's a no-brainer. Burners have a bunch of stuff. We take that stuff, we give it to people who need it. It's just getting the people to do it. So that's all I got. Thank you for listening to me, and I will pass it on.
Haley, thank you so much. It's super awesome. It's super inspiring. And, I want to say like, a piece that's kind of secretive in your project too, besides just being awesome and supporting the people around us, is that, one of the big sustainability goals for Burning Man is to be, no waste. And so like you're figuring out how we take that excess that we have and redistributing it to those who need it the most. And it's so inspiring. So thank you, Haley.
Thank you, Breelove. I appreciate that.
Yeah. All right, we are going to move on and we are going to go to Patrick Noter. Patrick lives in Placer County, and he's part of the BWB Sacramento region. His motivation for becoming a chapter lead was in part because of the 2009 Civic Ignition grant. Same with Haley a little bit there. Those grants are working out there, and also from the multi-regional summit. In 2006, he seeks to promote and support Sexual Assault Awareness Month in April with his local community and civic organizers in partnership with BWB and the Rotary Club. He also often partners with Connected by Our Humanity and the Gathering Inn with the Arts Calendar of Placer County to improve burner community engagement with local civic projects and programs. That's a lot of stuff, Patrick. I don't know how you fit it all in. I would love to know what you're up to out there in the world.
Thanks, everybody. Breedlove, thanks for the intro. And yeah, like Breedlove had kind of said earlier, my nonprofit is really partnered with Rotary, and we're all supporting an April 2026 Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And if you're kind of interested, you may want to Google sexual assault awareness in your local community and see what your community might be doing to bring in more awareness of sexual assault, human trafficking, and domestic violence. Could be another chapter we can talk about something later on. But as Breedlove said, in 2019, I submitted a grant request with the Civic Ignition grant to do something that I do at Burning Man. We're still doing it. My camp is Rosa Brooks Coffee Hose. We do pour over coffee service at Burning Man. And what I want to do in my grant request, I was really inspired by this goal of taking that special sauce, that vibe that happens at Burning Man, and bring it into our local community, extend it into our local community. So that was the gist of, or the my title of my grant request was extending our burn into the local community. In 2019, there was a summit, and there were two awards that came out of that that BWB summit. One was Move Your City, and the other one was my grant. It ended up being something called Being Grounded. And these two projects are still going all the way from 2019, still going strong. And part of that grant request, when the people that reviewed my grant at the summit, they gave me some really good feedback and guidance. They said, number one, we really don't know what the general public would feel like by getting a free cup of coffee from a homeless person. Cool, okay. The second was Roasted Bros and Coffee Hose. That's a really cool burner name, but again, we don't know what the general public would think of that name, right? So what we ended up doing is we allowed the staff and the guest, and this project was to involve both the staff and the guests of the Gathering Inn, to choose their own name. They chose the name Being Grounded, okay? And so again, what I want to share with you is also a partnership, okay? I didn't go out and do this on my own. I went to the Gathering Inn, who I'd been volunteering already and knew the folks there, and I said, hey, I got a grant. You want to do something? And what came out of that was something that was it not only did it do something that showed Burning Man, but it also helped these folks, the unhoused folks community, in their transition back into the community. And just to give you a little background on the Gathering Inn, they have the contract with Placer County, and they provide all the services to the homeless community in Placer County. They have a shelter in South Roseville. They have two shelters in Auburn, where I live. One is a low barrier shelter where they still do, the people are still addicted, but there is a place where those folks can go. And then the other shelter is the Mid Placer shelter, where these folks are sober and they are working through programs to working their way back into the community. So when I said about a partnership, this gentleman, his name is Nick Goling. He was a program director at that time. He is now the executive vice president of the Gathering Inn. But Nick was my key partner in this project. And what Nick I took a quote that I've used quite a bit. He says, at its core, the Gathering Inn is about transformation. The Being Grounded coffee service is a way to transform not only the lives of the guests we serve, but the overall narrative of the homeless community. So we've already seen some real positive benefits from the guests gaining valuable skills, building confidence, and improving with their connection with the community. And so these factors all make a difference as they move from homeless to housing. And what we found out, and what we realized as we did these coffee services, is that the guests of the Gathering Inn got a sense of purpose. They got self-confidence. And this really helped them when they would go out and interview for a job or talk to a landlord. So this kind of just a little sense of dignity of allowing them to do giving, do a gift, a simple cup of coffee, created that sense of purpose. What do we have here? We all, besides serving the Placer County employees, we did a coffee event for the city of Roseville. Again, it was gifting the coffee, doing the pour over coffee, and I like these pictures as a reflection of what that positive interaction with the community. So you had the Roseville city employees and you had the Roseville police department. And I love this picture of the guy doing the hand grinding and getting involved with the whole coffee service. Again, it created a positive experience for both the guest and the police department and the Roseville city employees. And again, it's all about kind of creating that positive shared experience. And then on the far right corner, we took the opportunity to create a little booth and talked about what Burning Man is, talked about the MRS Summit, and also kind of tried to give another narrative of, what is Burning Man? Because in our local community, in Placer County, every year people see all those weird things drive up to the burn. They see all this dusty, weird shit come back, right? And then what they also hear is what they read is all the salacious stuff, right? So it was an opportunity to kind of say, here's another side of Burning Man that most people don't really see unless they experience it. So in addition to doing the coffee service, what we also did is they actually did the roasting of the coffee. Okay. So it was more of like what they were giving was more their own kind of what they made or what they did. And we also gave them the chance to learn about the Costa Rican coffee project, the Costa Rican farmer that was helping his neighbors, the Uganda project that we're doing in Uganda. And when you're doing a pour over coffee service like we do at the Burn, you've got a minute or two where you have a chance to interact with the person that's receiving the gift. And this gave them something to talk about and was more of an icebreaker. So this is sort of like just a short kind of narrative. Again, as I'm talking about a partnership, Keith Dietrich, the CEO of the Gathering Inn, I use this quote. He says, "Being grounded coffee service provides an opportunity for our guests to gain the valuable job skills at the same time." Again, reconnecting with the community by gifting local roasted single origin coffee. Again, it's an opportunity to kind of connect with the community, and it's about the dignity of giving, right? We are working on almost a paradigm shift here, right? Everyone that wants to support our unhoused community feels like they have to give them something, and we do, okay? But there's another role we can play by graciously accepting a little gift of a cup of coffee. Again, it does so much for their self-esteem, sense of purpose, self-confidence, and it helps them in their journey back into the community and that connection back into the community. So, again, this project is still going. We're partnering with Rotary now. We do the coffee services with our Rotary projects, and we're also my nonprofit Connected by Humanity has received a grant from the Art Council of Placer County, where we're doing art projects in the 3 shelters, including that low barrier shelter, where people are still doing their addiction. So this project is still kind of growing, and I think the key thing is like we partner. We partner with the Gathering Inn, and I think that's what helps this project be sustainable as well. So again, thank you guys for Breed Love. Thanks for the opportunity, and thank you BWB for supporting and starting the grant, supporting the nonprofit, and supporting our efforts. I thank you again, BWB, and all the good stuff you guys do for us.
Patrick, and really, I mean, your project, because I know so much of what it has become, that original coffee service, what has grown into. We don't have time to get into it,
Right.
but trust me when I tell you that the work that Patrick has done has gone far beyond just coffee service. So we'll be sending out an email after the call, and you can follow some of his work if you're in the Sacramento area and get involved with that too.
Right. Thank you. No, I forgot. We've also got some videos of some of the coffee service that's in the chat, and we can share with you after the call.
Patrick. All right, next up, we have a man that possibly needs no introduction. We have Halcyon, a longtime burner and community organizer behind First Saturdays. This is a grassroots effort that brings together volunteers each month to share meals, supplies, and connection with his unhoused neighbors in San Diego. What began as a simple act of showing up has grown into consistent community practice rooted in relationship and mutual care. And I think Halcyon's work reminds us that meaningful change often starts with presence and consistency. So, Halcyon, will pass it off to you.
Thank you. Well, about 16 years ago at a high school reunion, I was glowing about how much Burning Man had changed my life and talking about how I wanted to find ways to gift in the default world. And I had this realization that, at Burning Man, you have to work so hard to give things away. You have to be like a megaphone and like, please come have a mojito, please. But like, there's people downtown in almost every city that would love a pair of socks. So I'm like, it seems like a pretty simple way to get all that joy with so easily. So, and I got in a conversation with a guy who was a really rough character when we were in high school together, but had become a born again Christian. And we found out we were like reading the same books and had the same aim. I was calling it gifting, but he was calling it service or something else. And so we just one day he called me from the Costco parking lot and said, "Hey, I just bought a bunch of stuff to give away. Do you want to come downtown with me?" And I picked him up in my pink winged motorhome and we drove downtown and learned that it's not a big deal. People do it all the time. Like we, met somebody who said, "Yeah, you just pull up here. It's called a, drive by. Do this. Oh, okay." And learn, but it felt so awesome. We were like, let's just do this every month. Let's just do this every month. And so we called it First Saturdays and just started every first Saturday going downtown. And we would all load into the RV and then we'd go to the Skid Row area of San Diego, set up tables and give it away. And my friend, because he's a better man than I, was like, let's keep this private, and we don't want to boast about our good deeds. And I'm like, dude, I'm definitely putting this on social media. And so then we had more people joining us, and pretty soon we had like a caravan of cars going downtown. And then it started to kind of the Skid Row is rough, but it was a lot of what I was trying to do is to give a fun gifting experience. And so we started having families come, and a lot of kids, and it started to become a thing of this is not kid appropriate. Like we had a couple of situations that were rough. And so we talked to some people who are regulars, have been doing their hot dog giveaways for years. And they said, just pick a place and just show up there and just that you're going to be there every first Saturday. And I'll spread the word, make a little flyer, and we'll just pick a place. And so we moved around from a parking lot to a park through the years, and just our thing was we're going to be there every first Saturday and we're going to give away whatever we got. And so it's donated clothes. We had care packs that we have with socks. And so we had our budget is we spend like 150, 200 bucks a month just on supplies, and everything else is donated. And through the years, we've had we get huge crowds of volunteers through the college organizations. So once the kids find out that it's fun, or there's this, kind of that it's easy and it's fun, we have like Flying Sam's, Alpha Miracle Foundation, the Rotaract. There's a group called Love Works, which is like an offshoot of the Foamy Homies, which is an awesome Burning Man camp. And they join us once a year and bring like a sound system. So we really try to make it into the joy of gifting. And I really consider it to be half of our goal is giving dignity and stuff away to people, and the other is giving young people an opportunity to understand how much gifting is. And before we have volunteers all show up an hour early so we can have like a communion kind of thing. Sometimes the hardest thing for me is figuring out what kind of work can I give to 100 kids? So some of these ideas like, what if we organize all the clothes so that I'm like, no, actually, I need things for these kids to do. So let's just reorganize them again. We're going to reorganize the clothes again. And we remind them that like, hey, we have too many people for jobs. So the best thing you can do is just interact with somebody. And everything that we're giving away is just a prop so that you can interact with somebody that is not in your normal social circle. And that's when the really rewarding thing comes, is when some kid, sits down and listens and realizes that, a homeless person is Jeff who got his tools stolen and, is so grateful for blah, 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 So we've been doing it 16 years. I feel like every time we're still trying to it's kind of like seat of our pants. Let's figure it out. But we keep coming back to, we just show up and give away what we got. And sometimes we go back to an idea of like, it's more about the direction that we're going, not the distance. Because inevitably there'll be some kid who runs up and goes, we're almost out of sandwiches. And I'm like, oh, dude, we're always going to run out of sandwiches. Like if we think that's a loss, then you can't think that way. Every sandwich is a win. It's like win, 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 win. And that way, at the end of the day, you've got 150 wins instead of one loss. And I think that's the only mentality that can keep you going for years and years. And at least that's what saved me. And so I don't know if I'm going too long, but I've got a little video, just a little taste of what it looks like at our events. This is one when LoveWorks joined us. And I should say that Taco is the Third Avenue Charitable Organization, and that's the location that is now our go-to place. It's a incredible group, and they just give us this cool courtyard at a church that is it's kind of got its own unhoused community that feels safe there, and so it's family friendly and beautiful, and so we're really really grateful to be there. Thanks, everyone.
Halcyon, thank you so much for sharing your story, your experience, and counting the wins for 16 years. That's amazing. I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Danielle Doxy-Kultz, who is the founder of Burners Without Borders Detroit, one of the longest running chapters in the global BWB network. Since 2007, she has mobilized thousands of volunteers through projects like the Detroit Homeless Backpack Project, Free Stores, and the Backpacks to Beds initiative, always centering around dignity and human connection. Her work is rooted in a simple practice: start with a hello and meet people as neighbors. And now over to you, Doxy.
Thanks, Tranquility. Hi, everybody. I'm part of BWB Detroit. I'm Danielle, aka Doxy. It rhymes with Moxie, and I got a little bit of that. So this is a story of me to we. And I'm proud and humbled to be a part of this project for the last 18 years. So just a little bit ahead of Halcyon, though he's more consistent. So well, at the time it was me, started in 2007 when I saw a need of folks living on the streets and under bridges, and I begged everyone I knew for items. Hey, I see you got a new coat. What are you doing with the other one? And it just carried on from there. And the community just kept growing around it. And that was the part I didn't expect, and one of the best parts. In 2008, an amazing friend, Rosie Posey, so she asked her family to give her supplies, and she put them into backpacks, and she then gifted her gifts to me, and she's like, girl, we are like extreme campers, stop using paper bags and plastic bags. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. So she leveled us up, and we preferred new bags, but we took what we could get until I did a few of those pitch your idea events. I think Breedlove was at the first one I did in 2011, and it was above a Mexican bakery in Southwest Detroit, and people voted with little rocks as they ate soup. It was a wonderful event. And then after that, we got all new bags, and then the word spread, and then we got more tiny grants, and then more donations, and then more volunteers, and you see how this, the cascading event. So often over 100 folks would show up to pack backpacks, and we did it assembly style, kind of like what you saw at the table set up at Halcyon's event. So how we did was very Detroit. So sometimes afterwards we would even break bread with a potluck, which is one of my favorite things. We've done this in so many locations. Started out in my basement. We've done it at friends' houses, friends' businesses. Thank you to A New Life Prosthetics on Woodward, the Tangent Gallery, Mike's Church. And then I would take these backpacks to the street until others started wanting to help with that as well. Squee, let me tell you, that was pretty amazing. And then I had a rule where everybody had to take, if you took a backpack, you had to ask someone their name and tell them yours. That way you're humanizing the experience. So since 2014, we've also done an event called Free Store. It's very much like First Saturdays, except we have no rhythm to our timing of our events. Insert joke about being a white girl with no rhythm. That would be me. So basically, we would just ask for shoes and clothes and hygiene, and we would encourage folks to come down and hang their stuff with us on this block-long fence in front of the Mariners Inn on Cass Avenue, which is across from a very big sports ball arena. And once a big sports ball guy drove up and donated a bunch of sports ball clothes, and everybody was awestruck except me. I was like, dude, I need you to go to all your other tall sports ball guys and give us more supplies, because extra large and just larger items are the most requested, and they're the hardest for us to procure. So yeah, so we've worked with street medicine and street dogs. You see them in that big photo. And then we've had professional hairdressers. Shannon is in this image, and Bobby, who is not, used to cut hair for folks. I will tell you that is above and beyond. There's no way I could ever do that. And they did it with grace and dignity every single time with every single person, and they all left with a huge smile. So we've done a huge variety of ways to hustle money, and we have wish lists online. We have folks who mail us supplies from all over the country. Like, we're so grateful. And we wouldn't have been able to do this project if it wasn't for other people helping us do the thing. So their time and their money and gifts, and we've been fortunate to receive tiny grants and big grants, and BWB has given us plenty of them, because I have definitely knocked on their doors a lot of times over the last 18 years. So we've partnered with my niece's sorority. Apparently they love to gamble, which was great. We've done embroidered and leather patches that were donated, and we've done so many events. Friends have done so many events in bars, and they're like, hey, I'm going to collect stuff, which, hi, pro tip. At first we asked for canned goods, and then after too many years, I was like, why am I doing this to myself? I mean, sure, great workout. But then I started to ask for socks and gloves and $5 gift cards. It works smarter, right? So, and don't poo-poo McDonald's. They are ubiquitous, and they're almost always open. So, you need a place to go. So, and how that started was a new friend I met at one of those pitch your events. He had seen me, and then he showed up at another event with like $200 worth of $5 gift cards to McDonald's. So thank you, Tom Nordine. He's a famous pumpkin carver, and he really did another level up for our event. And for many years, Atelier Gothic donated a very expensive handmade jewelry piece that was auctioned off maybe like 10 years at an event called the Damned Exhibition. So thank you to him, and thank you to Devious and Decalia. And so insert koi face. I also ran a very tiny art project for 10 years called A Love a Cunt, Titties and Clitties. And our cut line was, we get chicks naked to help the homeless. So never said I was classy, folks. So essentially, I would print mostly women in private, mostly from the waist up, and they walked away with a 16 by 20 canvas of art that was uniquely them. And people loved it. There were lines. As soon as we would show up at that event, and it was usually 2 weekends, 3 nights, and our lists would fill up, and I was exhausted, and I would often get sick, but it was worth it every time. So, and we've even helped other local organizations around the city do cleanup events. So working with other organizations is a great way to get engaged with your local community, especially if you're just starting out and don't know what to do. Like, everybody needs volunteers. So it's great. Number one, it helps with networking. Hi, everybody loves that. And then you show up with a small unit of dedicated, ambitious crew that are ready to do whatever needs to be done. And the organizers of that event are like, are you kidding? And they love it. So, and then we also pivoted during COVID to make sure that we kept the project going, because folks still had needs. And even years when I was not in town during the winter, the crew, yes, Michael, they wanted to do this event. I was like, you guys, we don't have to do it this year. And they're like, oh my God, yes, we are. So I was like, oh, okay. So the only thing that they asked of me was to do my my normal posting, which i.e. be a very loud mouth. And then they want me to be on the phone with them all day during the event, mostly for moral support. And I'm not going to lie, I loved it. We recently moved to Cass Park to gather on some of the days that the Wobbly Kitchen is there. And the Wobbly Kitchen shows up with coffee and what's the word I'm looking for? Tomato soup and grilled cheese. It's what they do. And then other people follow them. And they've been doing this for 20 years. So they started with old school unionists doing this, and then now like suburban moms, and then young city anarchists gather, and it's pretty fantastic. But our group arrives at 9 a.m. Yeah, this crew is very much morning birds, much to my chagrin. No joke. I live the closest, and most of them live like an hour away, and I show up later than all of them. Like they just love this project. They love what they do. So we set up tables with items, and we have hygiene products lined up, packaged food, and we have like hot foods. We'll have pancakes, coffee, and hot cocoa. Thank you to Deep House of Pancakes. And we often had homemade stews. Thank you to Stephanie and Suzanne. And then there will often be carry-away packages of, shelf-stable or ready-to-eat food. And kudos to there's this woman who found me. I have no idea how she did so, but she works at a school cafeteria. And when they go on long breaks, she liberates everything because she refuses to throw anything away. And so sometimes we've met in alleys, and like all the stuff goes into my car, and then her and I just drive away. I don't even remember her name. Kendra, maybe? But she refuses to let food go to trash. So I love that she does that. We still hang up our clothes, but instead of a fence, we have a volunteer, Pups, who shows up with this huge contraption that he uses in his professional company, where it's like their event drapes. So we use the framework for that to hang all the clothes. Then we hang it by female and male, and then we hang it by, sometimes we try to do sizes, but come on. And something I've noticed in the last few years is that this is the first time in 18 years that the crew is mostly burners. I was like so proud for the last, 15 years. I'm like, there's hardly any burners involved. And now it's interesting. Now it's mostly burners. I'm like, it's just weird, and I love it. And either way, it's fantastic. And these folks, like everyone from all over the years, they show up and they bring their kids, and they bring their moms, and they bring their friends, and sometimes they bring their therapists, which I love. And folks are always bringing more folks, and that's how we do this, right? We don't do a bunch of social media posting. I mean, I'm horrible at that. If anybody knows me, I do my best. But it's word of mouth, which is fantastic. So much love to everyone over the years for everything and every way they have contributed to this project. I am beyond humbled, and I leave every single event exhausted and blissed out. And we cannot do what we do without every person who's ever cared to help us. So yeah, that is the story of our tiny little group walking the talk, and how it went from me to we. So, thanks, everybody.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Doxy. I love what a kind of a point of connection you've created in Detroit through your time there, and just really honored to call you friend. Next up, I'm really excited to introduce Reverend Gavin Rogers. I met Gavin for the first time in Black Rock City this last year. And when I learned more about his story and the work he was doing, I was deeply moved. Gavin is currently the Director of Outreach for the Greater Harlem Parish of the United Methodist Church in New York City. And before moving to New York City, he spent many years in San Antonio, where he served as both pastor and the CEO of Cortisone San Antonio, an organization supporting people experiencing homelessness and others navigating trauma, mental illness, and addiction. Gavin has long been known for leading with deep empathy and willingness to step directly into the experiences of the people he serves. In 2013, he was named Young San Antonian of the Year after spending the 40 days of Lent living on the streets in solidarity with people experiencing homelessness. In 2018, he traveled with the Migrant Caravan to listen to migrant stories and better understand the realities of the immigration crisis, which I hope we can hear that story on a different call. And his work and writing have been featured in the national media outlets, and I'm really grateful he's here with us tonight to share more about his work and his perspective. Gavin.
Thank you so much. Oh, wow. This has been really inspiring. Wow, what an inspiring time. What I've gotten out personally from the four other presenters here is really this idea that all the work we do collectively is is sharing in a common humanity, whether that's collecting tools and tents, right? Sharing and making coffee from other people, sharing clothes and backpacks, or sharing love and gifts at Slum Row versus street outreach, right? All of it is kind of seeing the dignity, or some people could say divine, in each and every person. It's kind of what started forming with me because I heard these three words said to me, come with me. What I was doing kind of haphazardly in 2012, my church was kind of rejecting all work when it came to serving the unhoused or people experiencing homelessness. We had a community center that was said open for all, but the church would often kick out people experiencing homelessness. And I, as a worker and early minister there, felt very uncomfortable with it. But I didn't know how to respond because I've never really knew much about people experiencing homelessness. So I spent the 40 days of Lent trying to learn about that on the streets of San Antonio. And it was a fascinating time. And I'm going to try to go to these fast, and I'm going to go back to those questions. I started meeting people on the streets, various people who would break all my stereotypes of what people were like experiencing homelessness, right? I met people who were living in the homeless shelter because they were just waiting for their spouse to get out of trauma care at the hospital. And they would live there as people receiving treatment. I met people who had been experiencing homelessness for many years, but extreme family trauma and drama that I just never really understood about. And it was an amazing journey. I could spend the entire 10 minutes talking about those 40 days, but I ended up meeting a man named Willie. He's right there on the screen. His name was Chili Willie on the streets. And one of the nights, I was actually working one of my required jobs at my work. It was a skate park for teenagers. And he came in to the youth night and was asking for help. And this was in the middle of my 40 days. And I was just a little bit more, I was listening more in those 40 days. And he told me that he needed assistance. And normally I would have done this before I met Willie. Oh, here's a pamphlet for some resources. Here's some nice guides to help you with. But I started listening to him and told him just to meet me outside around 9 p.m. Because I too was going to stay outside. And he kind of looked at me weird. And then we met back outside at 9. And I was walking around trying to find a place to stay for the evening, talking to Willie. And basically in those moments, he said to me, oh, you know what? Come with me. I'll show you where I'm staying. And I met Willie kind of in a parking lot like that. And we stayed in his abandoned place where he was staying at the time. It was kind of like an old barn, you could say, off the highway that no one knew that was still there. And in the time together, he changed my entire perspective on how to work with people experiencing homelessness or people who are unhoused, right? And it was the phrase, come with me. I don't think with that phrase being said, a relationship would have been formed. So I'm going to ask you this question because I think my thing is on a timer. So I'm going to try to stop that. But the question I want to ask you today is, and the question people have said throughout the time is, how best do we love and care for our neighbor? Now, this could be a neighbor in need who's unhoused, facing substance addiction. It could be a friend in crisis. It could be a family member who has lost a loved one, a single parent in need of more help. It also could be a burner camp mate who's so stressed and frustrated they can't see clearly. Y'all taught me that when I was at Burning Man, right? Everybody receives that care of neighborly love differently. Would we just stick to giving advice? Would we just stick to officiating the problem? Or would we try to invite them into a conversation, take them for a bit, listen and walk with them and find a solution in time that feels empowered or compassionate? I think you would know which answer you would choose. You would choose this humanity that is a little bit more caring and listening and walking among. And so in this whole time together, Willie and I got to know each other for those 40 days. And in the time, we became friends. We went to Willie Nelson concerts. He loved Willie Nelson. Obviously, his name was Chili Willie. It didn't take you much to realize he was a huge Willie Nelson fan. And we became basically roommates. And after those 40 days, we continued to walk along with each other. These are the 4 people who lived together in San Antonio. It was absolutely an amazing few years of experience. And Willie taught all 3 of us what it's like to live in this common humanity. We all shared in each other's gifts, failures, and all taught each other something different. Toward the end of Willie's life, we found out while living with him that he had terminal cancer. And my other roommate, Kelly, there was really, really upset about the situation, and we all were. But Kelly was really upset because all the media that would call and talk to us about Willie would ask this question: what is it like to live with a homeless person? And Kelly always said the greatest answer. He said, "That's funny. I have 2 other roommates, and one's a minister, and I can tell you which one's worse to live with." Okay? And he didn't see Willie as a story to be exploited or told. He really saw them as an equal. But in him passing away, that story kept being expanded in a direction we didn't like it was going. But something crazy happened. Toward the end of his life, there in the hospital, that's early days in the hospital or hospice care, we received a phone call, and I'm going to try to balance these pictures, from a person who was reading an article about Willie's life in the Express News in San Antonio and claimed to be his daughter, that she was searching for many years. And we couldn't really understand the story, but we knew Willie had a daughter. And the night, maybe a couple of weeks before he passed away, Willie got to meet his daughter because she read about him. And Willie, he has held his daughter's baby bracelet for his entire life. 25 years of experiencing homelessness. William went to that abandoned barn, dug it out of the ground, and the day he met his daughter, handed it to her and said, "I've been holding this for 25 years." All of us were blown away. We were just blown away by the power of this love. And then eventually Willie did pass away. We had his funeral right there in his favorite barbecue stand. His daughter, his granddaughters, his son-in-law all came to the funeral. Kelly and I, the roommate you saw, were in the back. We did not have any role in this story anymore. It was his legacy. It was his family. And people say, how did this story begin? People want to say, oh, Kelly, Gavin invited this guy in to be friends, and it wasn't. It was William who said to me, "Come with me. I'll show you the ropes. Come with me. I'll show you the barn." He was the first actor in this story of restoration who dropped his fear of the unknown, of the unhoused, and was able to see a common humanity and went with whatever journey lied ahead. And that little change that I learned transformed my view of how to work with really all people, but especially people maybe who are experiencing homelessness or in times of crisis. So therefore, in San Antonio in the last 15 years, we've tried to develop a program that really centers around finding this common humanity and walking among those who are experiencing homelessness on the streets. We started applying this to areas of street outreach and how we even speak to people on the streets, how our volunteers and our outreach workers could just change the tone just a little bit and find a better way to meet people and walk among people and experience the journey with them. Because transformation doesn't happen by just telling somebody what to do. It happens when there's a relationship, and it happens when there's vulnerability on both sides, which is really scary for the person maybe you see as the giver. But if you can try to make that more parallel, it's a two-way street, and that vulnerability, just with Willie, for example, had to be there. And so slowly we started trying to change the way street outreach workers could meet people experiencing homelessness. Here's a quick video of some of the greatest people I know that do the work. They were my first two outreach workers at Corazon when we changed our mission. And here is Morgan and Brittany.
If you could just kind of give us your position with Travis Park.
So my name is Morgan Handling, and I am the Associate Director for Corazon Ministries. We are a nonprofit run through Travis Park Church. So we know them by name. That's one of the things that an outreach worker takes pride in, is I stop and I acknowledge them by name. They're not just some random person. I'm not just going to ignore them when I walk by, pretend I don't see them. I'm going to stop and recognize them for the person that they are. Good morning, Kenny.
Good morning.
How are you?
Pretty good.
You having a good day?
No,
Staying dry?
not right now.
I know. I figured you'd have something protecting your hair like you always do.
Well, I don't intend to go out in the rain that much.
Where are we at thinking about the apartment? Have you talked to Tiffany?
Oh, yeah, I talked to some people about that. They said, I don't know when, but she said she was going to come by.
And you're wanting something downtown, right? That's the deal.
Yeah.
Okay. And one of our goals was coming out in this inclement weather is that I'm going to catch them when they're ready.
Yeah.
Nobody likes to be soaked. Nobody likes to sit in the rain. Nobody likes to sit in the cold. So I'm hoping that that help brings them to the point where they're ready to accept help. What's your name?
I'm lost.
What is it?
I'm lost.
Morgan. Nice to meet you.
I'm Brittany.
Nice to meet you. How's it going? I saw you scooping up water earlier, watering the plants. That was sure nice.
My family comes from like a military background.
Okay.
So when I do,
Where do you normally stay? You're not normally downtown.
really just like I've been working on my diet and exercise.
So we have a day center. So we're street outreach workers, right? So we have a day center that you can come hang out at during the day and get a hot meal and a shower and all that good stuff. And then we can help figure out what your housing options are. Get you off the street, whether it's shelter or a house or whatever it is. Okay? It'd be cool for you to come hang out with us.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah?
First thing I noticed is he didn't have shoes on. That was the giveaway. And then the longer we stood there and watched him and he was just pouring it into the plants, I was like, oh, okay, like there's probably something else going on here. So we'll see. We'll start from here.
I'm really grateful for our bike patrol, SAPD bike patrol, and park police. So one of the things that I've noticed here is that, like, if we have somebody suffering from withdrawals, we'll get a call from PD and say, hey, can you come help this person before they take them to jail? You know, because that's locking people up and putting them in jail is not going to solve our problem.
Hi, Robert. How's it going? Hi, how are you?
How you doing?
I'm doing good.
Long time no see.
I know, it has been a while. Remind me your name again?
Jenny?
Jenny. All right, Jenny, it's nice to see you again.
Being sober for a while, especially, so I don't see many AA books out here, so I just related to her, you know, and that's something that was really cool is when I said, yeah, I've got 7.5 years, and she goes, oh, so I grabbed it and I highlighted one of my favorite parts of that book. They build families, right? So you have moms out here and dads out here and uncles out here, and they're not blood, right? But they don't want to leave their family. It'd be like me leaving my sister, my blood sister. That's how they feel out here.
Bye, guys. We'll see y'all later.
So before we talk about that, all those people in that video gave us permission to share that story. So, and I can tell you most all of those people have received some form of housing in the last 3 years, especially the first gentleman you met. He lives in this amazing apartment in his requested spot in downtown San Antonio. And that's because Morgan spent time with him and really maybe a year with him. Morgan told me this is her favorite verse. I'm speaking for Morgan. Go out into the highways and hedges and compel them to come in until my banquet may be filled. That is a biblical text about inviting people in to a banquet when other people rejected it, kind of the rich and famous, and they went out and found all marginalized people to come experience this great banquet. And Morgan said, that's how I see the work I do. But if we apply this to really anything that we do, religious or otherwise, I'm not really cared in the religion. I love the fact that we can walk along people's lives, see a common humanity through all the things that we talked about today: tools, tents, backpacks, coffee, gifts, gifting, right? And really allow everyone to play a part in the transformation story of their lives. That is true with Willie. That is true with countless other people I have had the privilege of walking alongside with. This idea is really called a companionship model. It's modeled all over the nation, where volunteers and maybe even some paid outreach workers or people that work for nonprofits get trained in a new compassionate way to see each and everybody as a companion. Here in New York City, there's a completely volunteer group called the Street Homelessness Advocacy Program. It's put on and started by a few lawyers that wanted to go out and just use volunteerism to meet people where there are in their direct neighborhood. So there's teams each Thursday that go out in every borough, and they're not outreach workers. They're just neighbor volunteers that go and meet people, start conversations, sharing a cup of coffee, smoke a cigarette with somebody, and just really meet them where they're at. This happens all over, in places in Seattle, places in the Bay. All places have little sprinkles of this compassionate companionship model to tackle issues like extreme poverty, homelessness, addictions, harm reduction. All of those things are part of this compassionate model that I think as we can teach our neighbors and ourselves this model, then we can influence. And I've seen this done. I've seen this model influence city governments, police officers, other types of outreach workers that have worked in a more archaic model. They have slowly started seeing humanity different and really transforming the neighborhoods where they live. I think that's the ultimate goal. I think I'm totally over my time, but I think we're going to open it up for all types of questions here on out. And thank you so much. And I'm going to try to get rid of this screen because it's flipping all over the place.
Thank you so much, Gavin. I really appreciate that.
So I love the videos that I'm seeing in people's presentations, and I have gotten sick of using Google Photos. How many times have we seen people just scrolling until they try and find something and it just doesn't work? So I'm thinking about writing an app which would have a vocal interface or an AI interface, like a ChatGPT kind of interface, where you could say, hey, I did this fun stuff over the weekend. Please put together a video and then also post the video and notify the people that are in the video that this is posted. And so I'm wondering, this BWB people, would they benefit from something like this? Because I'd be happy to write it and then use BWB as a place to test and see if it actually helps people.
Yeah, Frank, I think the BWB Worldwide group would be a great place to pose that question, because we'll draw from a larger group. I think we've got like over 10,000 people in that group. And so I'd say throw that in that Facebook group that we have and kind of pull that team.
Great.
I was just going to say, one of the things that really strikes me about watching all of these presentations is that, in the little time that I've gotten to kind of go deep on this issue, the one thing that I've really come to understand is that being underhoused or homelessness is an incredibly complex issue. There is no root source to becoming underhoused. There's sometimes it is poverty. Sometimes it's a choice. Sometimes there's addiction, right? There's all of these ways you might end up in that. And I just really wanted to celebrate all of the speakers because you're all approaching it from a very different angle. And it is approaching this topic from such a variety of angles that I think is how we get to really approach such a complex project. So I just wanted to just say thank you all for those presentations. I feel like you're all showing so much creativity in what you're doing. So I just wanted to celebrate that for a moment. Yoga asked, how can we support your efforts?
Sometimes just sharing our events out to a wider variety of places, and not even just our events, our stories. Like Jamie's going to be sharing a bunch of links about us. Do a little highlight on something that one of those talks that meant something to you, because you're then sharing it with a different part of the world than maybe we're sitting in.
Each and every one of you live in a neighborhood. I don't know where. I'm just going to imagine they're all different types: large cities, dense cities, sprawling urban areas, smaller cities. But the way that we really, and I just put Shapson address on there, not to volunteer there. I'm not looking for that. I'm just saying that to walk around your neighborhood and slowly get to know the people around you is the best way. And just like Halcyon did, right? To go and just meet people where they're at. And that could be people not experiencing homelessness. I don't really know who your neighbor in need is. It could be the single parent that you know that lives next door. It could be all these different people, and just meeting them, get to know their name, and walk alongside them. And so looking for places that do that all across, you can just Google compassion models, places to volunteer, places to build backpacks. And during those acts of service, start a conversation, and don't see it just as a handoff, but see it as a way to start a conversation. And then you would be surprised where that conversation goes. That's really, honestly, the best way you can help your neighbor.
Just say hi. Look somebody in the eye. We live in a culture where, like, if you're driving, you're like, oh, I'm gonna look with my radio or look at my phone. And we will not look at somebody who might be standing right out our window. I will roll down my window and say, hey, I don't have anything, but hi. And no shit, a guy yesterday or 2 days ago, he's like, you buying me a pizza? And I was like, somebody is taking me out to dinner right now. I was like, yep, I want to buy you pizza. Literally, there's a pizza joint around the corner. He's like, tell him it's for Kay. And I was like, yeah. So I mean, I don't often do that, but like, I'll keep food in my car. I'll keep water in my car. I'll keep umbrellas. And like, I live in Detroit where I'm driving everywhere. So I will hand things out the window if it's not a supply filled backpack. Like, we all have something. So, but if you don't have nothing and to physically give, just say hi, break the bubble. And to homeless or anybody.
Yeah, I wanted to say this is very inspiring. The good work that's happening through Burners Without Borders and all, and everybody involved here is just great to see. I'm a burner, but I've also been a Rotarian for 28 years. And early on, I saw, Burners Without Borders and Rotary should work together in many ways. And we are. Patrick is, there's other people who have worked directly. And I want to let you know that reach out to your local Rotary Club if you're looking for resources. Rotarians are looking for projects and are looking for people, who have ideas, because that's what we do. And there's clubs in every city, often multiple clubs, and even in rural areas. I live in a rural area and there's 5 Rotary clubs. I live in rural California. So anywhere you go, just do a search online and show up at a meeting and say, hey, I have a project.
But to build on what everybody's saying, what you guys can also do is, like I said, find a Rotary Club and just show up for a lunch meeting. Introduce yourself, and say, hey, I've, got this thing going on. We are, like John Paul was saying, there are some active Rotary BWB collaboration. I know I've got 3 projects going that I'm working with my Rotary Club, but there are like, is there a group that's supporting your homeless community, right? Is there an opportunity to volunteer there? Volunteer, check it out, right? Maybe it's not the thing for you, but I've always been inspired to kind of find my partner inside the default world. I hate to use that word, but I think there's a lot of opportunities. But find what works for you too. That's what I would suggest to folks is kind of find like there's like a Rotary Club or a Civic group, and you can find some alignment there.
So Carly wrote on the chat, I can't imagine my local Rotary Club being burner friendly. And they'll surprise you. And if that one isn't, there's probably a bunch others. And there's also Lions, and there's all these other organizations that do service projects in your communities. You can reach out to the Lions, you can reach out to the Kiwanis and Seroptimus. So those are service organizations that have been around for decades, and they're more than always looking for projects to work on.
Yeah, what's a funny Rotary story is one time I spoke at a Rotary Club and they asked me, how can we volunteer? And I think they were expecting me to say, like, come to our soup kitchen and serve soup, which really is just your requirement there is if your wrist can turn, then you can volunteer. And I challenge the Rotary Club, because these are business people in all these sectors, to come to our soup kitchen and our day center, where we're open all day, and actually speak and talk to the people. These are business leaders that have jobs all over the city. And I said, I don't want you to serve my soup. That would be a waste. Come, and there were Rotarians still to this day will come, and all they do is eat the soup with the clients in need and our neighbors in need, and they just share in life experiences, because that's their point of view as well. And I couldn't believe they took me up on the offer. I thought I was just going to get a bunch of blank stares. But again, having a conversation with somebody, volunteering and talking with other people is way more important than any food I could possibly pass out at the moment.
And if I can add with the Rotary story, because we're really building on something here. When I went into my Rotary Club, what I focused on first was what were they doing? They have an Oktoberfest fundraiser, and that's not really my gig, but they love the Oktoberfest stuff. I supported that, right? So part of it's like, hey, come in and find out what they're out to, build a trust, let them kind of build you, and then you can start to have conversations about maybe what you want to do. I think it's really important when you want to go into a Rotary Club, some other clubs, to really take an interest in what they're doing already, because they're already doing some really good stuff. And also Rotary, look at Google the four tenets of Rotary, and you'll see how much they align with the 10 principles of Burning Man, right? But when you go in these civic groups, find out what they're about too. That's really important.
Breedlove.
Yeah, Patrick, I just wanted to double down on what you just said, and it's not about Rotary, it's about any community that is not our own, and it's really around